All right, the date is September 9th. Ile mko mnasema 99. Nothing planned for today. But yes, on a different note, today we begin the 3 days of national mourning following the dome tragedy at Endarasha Hillside Academy. From today dawn till dusk on Wednesday, all Kenyan flags will be flying at half-mast in respect to those who passed away.
As well as the East African flag.
Yes. So far, the death count has gone to 21 and still counting. So yes, that features as one of our biggest stories. Karibu sana. This is the Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Indimuli.
And I'm usually Stanley Ringita. You're about to have a marvelous Monday. There was no EPL over the weekend, so at least sisi watu wa Manchester tuli relax.
Hamukupigwa tena.
And for all those conversations you're talking about, the big panel.
Yes. Kipruto Rapkirwa, former agriculture minister, will be in studio alongside Dr. Mombingaru and Samuel Pogisio, former minister for ICT in the Kibaki administration. Philip Kisi, unfortunately, will not be making it today. But yes, we will continue with the conversations nonetheless.
Oh yes, and because on Thursday, Harambee Stars was playing against Zimbabwe, na wakatoka barren draw. Tomorrow they'll be facing Namibia in South Africa, and Monday Blitz will be coming up at around 8 a.m. Shatapoy Freda Rocho will be with Florence Dungu just to analyze the sports situation in the country, locally and internationally.
All right.
To the headlines now, we start with the Star.
Ogamba's agony as crisis rocks education sector, and as we mentioned, yes, the Hillside fire is one of the big issues that the minister, the Education CS has to deal with this morning. Away from the Star.
How state failed on school fire. Again, one of the biggest conversations. Structure, the People Daily Leo looks very...
Change. But at least they've given prominence to this story.
Yes.
We're back to see what else they're talking about on the front pages. But yes, the big story is a fire. Daily Nation decides to go with something totally different. Ruto, China, and dark SGR secrets. So yes, we may have secured a deal to extend the SGR all the way to the Malaba border, but
just how dark
secrets still abound about the original SGR deal from Mombasa to Naivasha.
On the Standard, 2 words.
Now, the Standard front page today looks very different, and you can see it is incomplete. This is the paper as it is. There are no photos, unfortunately. They've changed the font completely.
Yeah, by the way.
This looks like it's a fake paper, but this is what we have online. It doesn't look like the usual Standard.
The usual, yes.
But anyway, we do understand. Things do happen. Painful search, still featuring the same story we're talking about.
And the juxtaposition that to other matters as President Ruto makes more friends, Mount Kenya rumbles.
Yes, matters politics. I don't know why they actually connect the two.
Yes.
But that's the Standard this morning.
Matters business. Wacha tukujenge na hii story, literally. They say the untold story of Kenya's fake substandard cement. You might just be building, lakini...
Tulitoka fake fertilizer, sani fake cement.
Tukaingia tena fake schools. Sahi hata the air that you breathe might just be fake, ladies and gentlemen.
You never know. Aha. Taifa Leo, Kalonzo arukwa tena. Masuala ya siasa hapa. Na kuna picha pale aliyekuwa wakati mmoja waziri katika wizara ya maji.
Charity
Ngilu. So yeye ndo anamruka Kalonzo. Let's cross the border and take a look at what's here in Uganda today.
Today, the Daily Monitor decided to finya vilivyo. So apparently, they talked to... Okay, so first off, for the big and bold headline there, what do Museveni's 120 advisors tell him? Now, it's very rare to see Museveni's name on the front page of Daily Monitor.
But you know why I'm laughing is that in Kenya, we're facing a similar situation where the head of state has enough advisors and everyone is asking, wanafanya kazi gani? Wanalipwa nini? Well, in Uganda, they have 120 advisors. And one of them, Eddie Kenzo. You know Eddie Kenzo?
I know Eddie Kenzo.
After the appointment of the musician Edirisa Musuza, popularly known as Eddie Kenzo, as senior presidential advisor on the creatives, we sought out a number of presidents, men and women, on what advice they give the head of state. Their responses were far from satisfactory, and it wasn't surprising.
Napigia mtu namuuliza, sasa wewe una advise the president on matters agriculture. What do you advise him? Unajua, you know.
But 120 of them, surely. Well, Anita Among is there. She's now.
Is she among them?
She's among other gentlemen here from Parliament. That's a Daily Monitor. On the new vision.
On the new vision, matters markets, the government kicks out landlords. It has been a conversation that has been going on in Uganda. The traders in Uganda have always been pushing for conversations and discussions with the President of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, and this is just one of the updates there.
Okay. I think that story is very local to Uganda today. Tukivuka border tuingie Tanzania, on the Citizen they say why Dar is in the grip of road construction frenzy. The usual on the front page of the Citizen. So always matters infrastructure and roads. You know, I've seen this image, or at least something like this, on the front page of the Citizen for weeks now. It's just like a country under construction. At some point, Kenya was like that. So many major roads were under construction. Right now, I think we are beyond that. But now, this is what is happening in Tanzania. TAN roads. It says several major road construction projects are taking place simultaneously in the region after funds were disbursed at almost the same time. Yes.
Understandably, I think you're saying Tanzania is one of those places marafiki zetu pale hawana barabara.
No, but at least they're building roads.
Yeah, kwa sasa.
It is a construction site. Yes. The whole country, kila mahali barabara inajengwa, which is something good. In Kenya, I think about 10 years ago, when Kibaki was still president, Thika Road was under construction. The main road to Limuru, past Limuru towards Nakuru, was under construction. So kulikuwa diversions mingi. Mombasa Road too was being constructed. It looked like a construction site, and this is what that looks like now.
Kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi, kifo cha utata ni kada. Kumbuka Ijumaa, if you were with us on Friday, the same paper had kada, and we were trying to understand kada inamaanisha nini. Kumbe it's the same, wametohoza.
So this is a senior ranking officer in the opposition party Chadema who had been abducted by police. He was found dead. And there's a lot of hue and cry there. President Samia Suluhu Hassan has ordered for investigations into this. Wanasema ni kada wa Chadema anayedaiwa kutekwa akiwa kwenye basi, au koto akiwa ameuawa Ununio. Mbowe laani CCM, yatoa pole. Rais Samia agiza uchunguzi wa haraka kufanyika. Sema serikali anayeongoza haitavumilia vitendo vya kikatili. And it sounds very familiar, that statement. We will not allow extrajudicial killings and abductions under this administration. It's happening even in Tanzania. Well, haya ni magazeti. Kuna nyingine moja?
Yes, yes, the East African, kabla tuisahau. The same photo that the Daily Nation has gone with, the East African has also gone with, that handshake between Kenya's president as well as Chinese president there. They say East Africa community backs partners bid for China funding. The bloc's boss, as Kenya's envoy, joined region's heads of state in Beijing to support efforts to get cash for crucial infrastructure projects that will boost regional integration.
Yes, and you saw the kind of optimism Tanzanians had about what was coming their way from China. In Kenya, people are still skeptical over whether or not we are getting anything substantive.
The big word for them is loans.
Yes.
We're just seeing loans coming back here.
Kenyans siku hizi wanachunguza kila kitu, wasema hapana. There must be something. We have to kuamini tu hivyo. Well, these are the dailies this morning. I'll be back to take a look at the local ones. But for now, let's take a look at the traffic situation back home. And in Nairobi, this is a situation I can see hata kabla ikubali kunini. I can already see hapa Pangani interchange, it's building up. Imeanza mapema vizuri. This is, you can see that, sasa walieka kwa map hata tuone. Yes, you can see this red and yellow building up here. So Thika Road, Kiambu Road, expect a slowdown kama kawaida once you get to the Pangani interchange. It's building up. This is normal Monday traffic. The other trouble spot kawaida in Jugo Road, slow this morning. Nothing much after pale unaanzia Manyanja, inaitwaje, Donholm interchange.
Yes.
Nothing much to report on Jugo Road today. It's looking pretty smooth. Let's move further south. This road had been closed yesterday for the Nairobi Marathon.
Ilikuwa imeshikana. I was one of the victims.
Yes, movement around Nairobi was terrible yesterday. But now you can see it's back to normal traffic all the way past Cabanas. Ole Sereni into town, nothing much to report there. It's looking a nice green. Like Ngata Road 2 looking good, and I'll just start from the bypass, past Uhuru Gardens, down towards Nyayo Stadium. Roundabout, it's looking good. A bit of a slowdown on Mbagathi Way once you get to that junction with Kenyatta Market. Just a bit of it, slow kidogo too, but nothing to worry about. Ngong Road, usual trouble spot at the Prestige Plaza, and further back at that junction with Ole Dume Road, but it's smooth all the way. The other trouble spot is at Nairobi School. Yes, kama kawaida, it's building up slowly, nothing much. Here hapa kuna shida gani? Yes, same place.
Just for the ABC
place. Just
place.
before this ABC place interchange. So that's the traffic situation in Nairobi this morning.
Oh yes, we were mentioning your marathon. Kakumbuka, we should go for a marathon one of these fine days.
Yes, maybe was tishike na vitu kama.
Tuangalie weather so that you know this particular week as you start your week, how you're going to be dressed when you leave the house, how the weather is going to be looking like from the morning all the way to the evening. We start off with County 047 in Nairobi. It is 14 degrees Celsius. No rainfall today. The highest that you're going to get apparently is 26, 27.
Actually, it's getting really warm. Inamaanisha baridi imeisha.
Weather for two imekwisha. That is Nairobi. In Bomet, tuangalie sides of Rift Valley. This is 12 degrees Celsius. A similar pattern as well. Highest you're going to get in Bomet is around 23. No rainfall for today. In Mombasa, upon expecting very, very high. It's 24 right now at 6 a.m. Highs of 29. Mebakisha kidogo tu ifike 30 degrees Celsius. But that is how the weather is in Mombasa all the way until in the evening. No rainfall today. In Laikipia, are going to see some cold situation. 13 degrees, but they say it feels like 12. Apparently in Laikipia today also, highs of about 25 degrees Celsius. This shows from different parts of the country, just shows you how it's going to focus for the next week tomorrow. So we're going to just see and observe that just for you, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, though, let's take a look at what to expect in our news diary. You had alluded to it earlier on, and majorly really has to do with the Hillside and Russia fire tragedy which happened on Thursday night. So on the first page of our news diary, first off, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, that is DCI, will today start identifying the bodies of 21 pupils who tragically died in the Hillside and Russia Academy dormitory on Thursday night. And linked to that, on the next page now, Kenya will be observing a 3-day national mourning period starting today until sunset on Wednesday, September, in remembrance of these children. So according to President William Ruto, the Kenyan and EAC, that is East Africa Community flags, should also be flown at half-mast. We'll also be following up on that, together with what a number of leaders will be saying. We'll also be acting an update from the government spokesperson, that is Isaac Moura, from that particular school, just to tell us how so far. Remember, there are students, the pupils who are missing yet, about, I believe, 40 or so, the latest numbers that we have. So we also be going to get an update on the same. From Nyeri, let me take you all the way to Mombasa, where the Shakahola massacre hearings will resume today until the 12th of September in Mombasa Court before Chief Magistrate Alex Thuku. The ODPP has assembled a roster of about 422 witnesses to testify against Paul Mackenzie, who's the prime suspect in the Shakahola massacre, as well as 94 co-accused individuals. Something else that is going to be happening in Mombasa today, on the final page, the Kenya Defence Forces will today be hosting the 59th Apostolate Militaire International General Assembly Conference, and Commander Kenya Navy Major General Paul Otieno will be officiating this conference. That is in a nutshell in what to expect in our news bulletins as well as our digital platforms. Leo, today in history. Okay, let's take a look at the newspaper review. Tuanze na The Star.
Yes, they say smart people read The Star. I do have a physical copy here with me. Ogamba's agony as crisis rocks education sector. That's a big headline on the front page. And they talk about the kind of crisis that the new CS for education has to deal with. Of course, key among that, Hillside Fire has exposed incompetence of quality assurance. So they call it season of discontent. One, still in the education sector, there's a lecturer strike. Secondly, school fires, including what you're dealing with today, as even we begin the first day of the 3 days of national mourning. University students, demos, they had threatened, they called them off yesterday, but after the government backed down, and we'll see that on other dailies. Still university funding model confusion and split in the teachers' unions, couplet over teachers' strike. So matters education featuring on the front page of the Star newspaper today. Meanwhile, CS announced formation of 2 committees to review funding model for university, and that was the reason why the student leaders decided to call off their demonstrations, which were to kick off this morning.
Yes.
The Hillside tragedy also features on the front page. Police focus on electrical faults as one of the suspected causes of this fire. Additional 600 elite officers trained for Haiti mission, and Odinga in future host China-Africa summits in Africa. We've heard that story before. Why are African leaders going for an Africa summit?
Yes.
To meet someone in China or in Russia or anywhere else?
So it makes sense if unaalika mgeni. Now imagine if they were welcoming the Chinese president to Africa, alafu unamwomba loan. Unaendanga kwa mtu, unamwambia nisaidie.
Because even China has something to benefit. They're not just giving you loans for nothing. They have something they're looking for.
Oh yes, most definitely.
That's the Star today.
On the front page of People Daily, the conversations on this paper that will form one of the biggest conversations on State of the Nation later on. How state failed on school fire. They go with a different angle on this. They're calling it a tragedy. The government did not implement measures by Auditor General on prevention of infernos in learning institutions. Is on pages 4 and 5. They say a nation mourns.
Yes, and this is a big discussion because this is not the first fire we've seen.
Yes.
Remember as far back as Changuli fire tragedy.
The Bombolulu.
There's so many that we've seen even as far back as recently as when you were in school. I think in high school, where there were so many school fires, maybe not fatal, but enough schools were on fire, dormitories especially. And how come we're still having those? And does it mean we've never learned any lesson?
Yes. I mean, just recently, because after this, again, Isiolo girls also happened. The fire there. Other conversations on this front page. Speaking of fires, another very, very sad tale on the bottom, the left side. Athlete ran towards neighbor while ablaze. The Ugandan athlete there, Cheptegei. Yes, who passed away in Kenya after allegedly the boyfriend set her ablaze. At the top, inside the battle for projects in Parliament, and still on matters athletes, what was happening yesterday? The winners, what about a whooping 3 million kukimbia?
That's the Nairobi City Marathon.
Nairobi City Marathon.
Those were the winners yesterday.
Yes. I'm telling you, running is very lucrative. I don't know if back at home, wherever you're watching us from, you participated in the Nairobi City Marathon. Mtuambie kama miguu bado imewaka. Tunafaa tujaribu kitu siku moja. I don't know if your knees will survive, but...
I don't know. I don't think so. Anyway, let's move on now to the Daily Nation.
Ruto, China and dark SGR secrets.
Yes. And the Daily Nation has steered clear of the biggest conversation, which is matters to do with what's happening with the school fire.
It makes a mention at the very top.
As very small highlights, directing you to page 3. And Rasha Hora unanswered questions as detectives intensify probe. That's on page 3. Meanwhile, the main story, Ruto, China and dark SGR secrets. So they say, as the president pursues extension of SGR line, the current project continues to struggle with heavy costs, depreciating assets, and a web of secrecy over the manner and price at which it was procured, even as taxpayers are slapped with hefty interest payments every year. That's a big story there. The other story given prominence, state backs down on new university funding model. The CS for Education yesterday formed 2 committees to review implementation of the new funding model, and that was enough to have student leaders in universities across Kenya call off their demos that were to start today. Matters politics, jitters over likely Ruto-Raila 2027 election deal. We'll be looking at some of that politics later on. The back page of the Daily Nation is dedicated to the Nairobi City Marathon that took place yesterday, and we have images of the winners. So they say, onwards and upwards from here. Nairobi City Marathon winners reap big, or dream big as well. You said winners were getting 3 million shillings each. All right, that's the Daily Nation. Let's take a look at the Standard.
On the Standard, it is a very light paper today. On the digital pages, these particular photos that are missing, the first one is of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, there with the clergy. More on page 9, they say occupying vacant seats only. DP tells Raila allies. He has called for respect in government, saying he will not be intimidated by the president's new appointees and that they will fill up only the empty positions.
Yes, basically what he said, and you're speaking in Kayole, is that yes, you can get all these other positions, but the position of the deputy president is currently occupied. Don't dream of ever occupying that right now, at least not in this administration.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And another missing one here, all side, they have the health and science pullout of mwanafunzi pale akiandika. But then now for the biggest conversation for this paper, painful search. They say, and they're asking, where are our children? Parents of Endarasha Academy ask, as the authorities look for the missing learners. Today, it will be day 3 as the caregivers hang on to every hope their little ones are safe. Is it day 3 or 4?
It happened Thursday night. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Today's day 4.
Day 4, yes. Should be day 4. And the photos there of some of these learners.
And it's still disturbing that 46 children are still missing. Yes. Those confirmed dead are 21.
Yes.
46 are still missing from the Thursday night inferno.
Oh, yes. And remember, keep it right here. We'll be giving you more updates from the government spokesperson when we have them. Other conversations at the bottom, I believe they were just juxtapositioning that painful search as President Ruto makes more friends, Mount Kenya rumbles. And tunasema bora usiguze muriba. Incessant squabbles among its senior citizens over the political direction Central Kenya should take grow as the political landscape tilts towards the formation of new alliances, as on page 8. Pale juu, education matters. The photo there of Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Kamba, he says, the paper says that he bows to pressure students call off protests. And into business matters, European Union reassures Kenya on trade pact. And if you're still following up on the US elections that are going to be happening end of this year, say Trump-Harris tie ahead of TV debate. Now, this is interesting because last week, Kamala Harris, who's the vice president, was the one leading in the polls. Right now, it's a tie, so we need to see how this particular TV debate is going to be. And then for something that is going to be big for Kenya, Harambee Stars is going to be facing Namibia tomorrow. They have that on the sports pages on page, actually on the back page. Or it will be a tough mission for Harambee Stars against Namibia. This game is very important for them. The fact that they had a barren draw against Zimbabwe for this one, wakishindwa hii, chances za kuanza kufika hadi Morocco itakuwa ngumu.
Sad thing is that Harambee Stars is now forced to play all its matches away from Kenya.
Yes.
Against Zimbabwe, they had to play that in Uganda. Now they're facing Namibia and South Africa. Reason is we still don't have a FIFA-approved stadium.
Yes.
Yet we're hoping to host jointly with Uganda and Tanzania AFCON 2027.
AFCON 2027.
It's only 3 years away.
Yes.
How come we should be prepared by now?
Firata alikuwa anasema ana blame Kenyan fans. Why did you not go to Uganda? Support your very own. Ni kama we are not a footballing nation. Anyway, stick around for that on Monday Blitz at 8 a.m. Into business matters. Fred?
The untold story of Kenya's fake substandard cement. Yes, we've talked about a lot of fake things, including fake fertilizer. Now, 62% of samples collected in one KEBS operation fail test. Sasa umejenga nyumba na simiti, alafu unaona nyumba ina crack tu.
Alafu hapo nje ulinunua fertilizer nje ya nyumba.
Hata mahindi imekataa. Report shines a spotlight on collapsed buildings. So this is actually something that affects a lot of Kenyans.
Yes.
And it's something very worrying. It's there on the front page of the People Daily.
Particularly, particularly Nairobi.
Yes.
Something interesting as well. Now you remember Kenya Revenue Authority has been pushing for farms to onboard for the electronic, the eTIMS system. Now, apparently wanasema 80% of farms snub that particular push. Only 20% wameingia kwa hii electronic I'm looking for electronic tax invoice management system, eTIMS system. So to see how KRA will be pushing so that more on board.
Finally, gazeti la Taifa Leo, Kalonzo arukwa tena. Sema Charity Ngilu asisitiza kwamba haitakuwa haki kwa eneo la Ukambani kukosa mgao wake katika pato la taifa. So kama Nyanza wameingia, wanasema hata Ukambani sisi find space for us. Ngilu ataka jamii yake ifuate mfano wa Raila kwa kushirikiana na serikali ya Rais William Ruto kwa lengo la kupata maendeleo. Meanwhile, Kalonzo Musyoka amesema sisi tunaelekea upande mwingine. Sasa Kalonzo asemekana amerukwa tena. Masuala ya siasa tutaangazia kidogo na wachanganuzi.
This brings a very interesting dynamics. You push your gamma and solidifying it and adding the A in Akamba.
Divide and rule.
Yes.
Divide and rule, first rule of politics.
Right.
And I think that is a span in the works in as far as the realignments in Gema continue. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, wanasema wanavyuo nchini wafuta maandamano. Waipa serikali siku 30 kushughulikia masuala yote kuhusu mfumo mpya na mfumo tata wa ufadhili. Kwingineko, masuala ya afya, waliougua mpox watoka hospitalini, na ngome za Ruto na Raila za waka sababu ya 2027. Mwaka 2027 wanaomezea mate nyadhifa katika UDA na ODM waanza kukwaruza wakijipanga. Mudavadi sasa elekeza kampeni za Raila Namibia. Habari hii iko pale juu kwenye ukurasa huu wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Hii ni ziara ya kwanza kusini mwa Afrika tangu azma ya Raila itangazwe rasmi. Na masuala ya spoti, miamba Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Cameroon na watesa AFCON. Mataifa haya nguli katika soka barani Afrika yafumua wapinzani na kujiweka pazuri kufuzu AFCON. Wakati huo Kenya inalazimika kucheza michezo yake ya nyumbani ugenini. Let's take a look at the cartoons as we finalize this news review now.
Tuanze na cartoon ya The Star.
Yes, The Star, they make reference to the school in Fano, and there's someone who's sleeping right next to that. That must be the government or the institutions that are tasked with taking care and ensuring that this doesn't happen. People have slept on the job. Fires still continue to kill innocent learners across the country, with the latest one claiming so far 21 lives and counting. That's The Star cartoon this morning. This one is on the Daily Nation.
Igor's take, it has to do with the government's response in so much that is happening. This is juxtapositions what is on the front page of The Star, the different happenings of the country. First of all, the blackouts, the mpox strikes from different parties.
Promises.
And so in ile set here in, what is coming in, alafu out, promises.
Too. Just promises. And he's actually firefighting.
Yes.
He's trying to put out fires all over. That's the government, Kenyan government, struggling there. The cartoon on the Standard talks about matters devolution. And the top inaanzia kwa governors, inaenda kwa MCAs, pale chini hakuna maji inafika. So it's only the leadership that's gaining from devolution. The person who was supposed to be the biggest beneficiary of devolution is getting nothing. Yes. That's a Standard. And finally, People Daily.
Standards take the government still. Leo cartoonists wameamua.
Tulifunzwa tukaambiwa hii inafaa tu kuchokoza.
To irritate the government.
Especially the government.
Yes, so you have here the pair of trousers which depict the government and kwa mfuko yao ni opposition. Gentleman there wearing a cap, your opposition, and he says, please understand, if you can't beat them, you know what, just join them.
Oh, yes.
And the common mananchi is looking at this fella and is wondering, this conversation is coming up on State of the Nation later on.
To stand by for that, Samuel Pogisio Kipruto Rapkirwa, Dr. Mombingaru will be in studio for that conversation. Do join us online on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. You can always tag me at Fred Ndimuli. That's my handle on X.
Oh yes, and Yoringita _22047 is our SMS number. We have a fully packed show for you. After State of the Nation, we get sporty. We'll be interacting with you just to know what your thoughts are about the Kenya's qualification to AFCON. And then later on, we get into farming. We talk about something that is rarely talked about, snail farming.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting.
I had a conversation with the owner of Kono Farm. And
Kono from Kono Kono.
Yes, Kono, the snail farming. Can you ever eat snails? That is one of the biggest questions that you're asking me this morning. Unaweza kula snail? Inaka kwa tamu by the way.
Hukula?
Sikukula. Nitakula siku moja. Don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor. My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe right here at TV47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. Time for us to take a look at the big discussions this morning. This is the state of the nation. And of course, a lot of the headlines today focusing on the dormitory fire at Endarasha Hillside Academy in Nyeri that has so far claimed the lives of 21 learners. On the front page of The Standard, they say painful search. 46 children are still missing from the Thursday night inferno. Following a presidential proclamation last week on Friday, today, this morning, starting at dawn, all flags, Kenyan flags, will fly at half-mast. Even the East African flag will fly at half-mast as we begin the 3 days of national mourning, and this will continue until dusk on Wednesday this week in honor of those who perished in that tragedy. Meanwhile, DNA testing of the remains of the learners will begin this morning. We are in studio this morning with Samuel Pugisio, ICT Minister in the Kibaki II administration, and also served as a Senate Majority Leader. Karibu sana Bwana Pugisio. Kipruto Rapkirwa, Agriculture Minister in the Kibaki I administration, also joins us. Karibuni sana. We start off with this tragedy. As we begin the days of national mourning, probably I give you an opportunity to condole with the families of the victims first. Pugisio, start with you.
Oh, Fred, let me take this opportunity to express my condolences to the families of those children and the school that had this tragedy, and especially the parents of those children, relatives of those children, very many innocent lives lost. I just pray that they'll be comforted during this time, the difficult time.
Bonakiro?
Well, let me join my colleague in expressing my condolences to the families of the children that we lost. And also to say that there is a lot more that we can do as a people to make sure such incidences do not really occur. Also, Fred, allow me to condone the passing on of David Koech, a renowned scientist who served this country to great lengths. It is unfortunate that it had to happen. And as we condole with the family, and realizing that he was one of the top scientists in the world, not just in Africa or in Kenya, we wish such people can be eulogized in a way that their imprint on the landscape of science, technology, and also innovation becomes an issue that we need to pride on. I say so because innovations in Kenya take a lot of time for them to be recognized and to be appreciated. And the lacuna that is created by such a delay has allowed other countries to take advantage of our scientists, such that for you to make a breakthrough, you might have to link up with some of the countries in the West, which is also a challenge when it comes to innovation, science, and technology.
Thank you for that. And of course, yes, that the Daily Nation has dedicated its entire second page to Dr. David Koech, man who worked with snake oil merchants. That you can read a lot more about his exploits. But back to the tragedy at hand, and that's what's happening at Endarasha. Even as we continue with the 3 days of national mourning, a lot of questions have arisen, and one wonders if we are learning any lessons, Bwana Pugisio. The People Daily is not being very soft on the government. They say 2020 auditor report haunts officials after Nyeri school inferno. The Auditor General had released a report, and they say the government's failure to implement the Auditor General's previous recommendations on preventing school fires has returned to haunt the education sector following last Thursday's inferno at Hillside Endarasha Academy. Now, this was a performance audit report released in September of 2020, where the Auditor General spelled out far-reaching measures needed for schools to avert such fires, including safety preparedness, issues like fire extinguishers, and all other things. And this audit assessed the Ministry of Education's fire preparedness for the 2014-2015 to the 2018-2019 period. And it sampled quite a number of schools across the country in Machakos, Siaya, Uasin Gishu, and Kiambu counties. Now, we've seen quite a number of fires in schools that have been very tragic and have killed so many students. The Changuli fire tragedy. There was another school in Nyeri where prefects were burnt in a dormitory. There have been other acts of arson that continue to be reported, especially on when the third term of any academic year hits. Yet nothing appears to change. What could be the problem? Because we have all these audit reports, we have instances where so much investigation has been done, yet the cases still continue.
Thank you, Fred. I do look at these things from a point of a parent and also from a point of political leadership in this country. And I do want to say that the buck stops at the government of the day. The president and his cabinet must be the ones to be held responsible for whatever happens in the country. Because if you're responsible for matters education, then they're supposed to be inspectors of schools. They're supposed to be, from local levels up, a situation where policies are then cascaded down to the level of the school. And this particular school, as we can see it, did not keep certain standards which were set for children. So taking care of children is a responsibility of both parents and the government. And here are parents also who seem not to care about the situation and where their kids stay. You just dump a kid in school and then you go home, you pay fees and go home. So what does that say about a society? It's also the responsibility of our Auditor General, who is showing all these things and had no way of implementing, but has to keep saying these things all the time. Money has been stolen, but there's nothing to forestall that. So a report like that paints a very bad picture that we are corrupt, even to the level of a private school. And that we are compromised to the level of, it's not very good for me to think, like I'm an investigative officer. But let me tell you from just a clear view of what I see, there's a lot of negligence responsible here. And the care of children, and that's why I said the government is responsible. We have a Children's Act, we have all sorts of laws that protect children in this country. And one of them is then the condition of their setting, where they sleep, where they eat, and where they learn, according to ages. And we must realize as Kenyans that learners are getting younger and younger as they go to school. In fact, secondary school learners are getting younger and younger and younger. University, the same thing. So as a the lower primary school the situation should be that we're taking care of these children with rules and laws on our side to take care of how they sleep, how they eat, how they learn, the kind of teachers we hire that teach them, the kind of management in the schools. So, yeah. Finally, I'd like to say this. We have this thing about the word academy, put on school. You think if my child goes to this school, they're better. So government public schools have such a bad reputation that parents now choose to go to whatever kind of academy it is. And that's where the children are able to do better. So it's also a point that I want to make here that lives are lost in Kenya, whether by fire or by shooting or by what. These are sacred. I like the way now that we are mourning, but really, how did we take care of these children? Mm-hmm. And why are we such callous people that it happens, we forget. It happens, we forget. We forget so quickly of individuals and groups of people that have died in these tragic fires. So I like to say, while in my mourning and sympathy, I don't want to say so much about it now because it is very painful. Even if your child wasn't there, when you look at that situation, it's very, very painful. And I really hope that we can see heads rolling here. We can see inspectors of buildings in the counties held responsible here. We can see the people who made approvals for this kind of school, this kind of dormitory, this kind of things, also held responsible. Okay. So the government is already there. I don't know what to say. It's very sad. Yeah.
It is a very sad situation indeed. Bonakirwa, yes. With the continued commercialization of education, there's a lot of proliferation of new private schools. And as Pogisio mentioned, the lack of inspectors of schools. It revives this whole debate on whether or not boarding schools should be abolished. It was a debate that was rife a few years back, and many people are wondering, should we really still have boarding schools going forward? This is one of the discussions that has come following this tragedy. Yeah. But what he said about the lack of inspectors of schools and the deteriorating standards of the situations inside those schools.
Yeah. Well, there are a number of challenges. We should ask ourselves, is the fire, is it arson, or is it negligence, or is it that the children are fiddling around with a number of gadgets that may create this kind of fire breakouts that has consumed a number of lives? That should be our question. The second issue is that the last time when we had the Changuli issue, the Bombolulu, and many other fires, the government had made it so clear that in every boarding school at the dormitory level, there should be a matron who should be able to be there with the students so that should such a situation arise, a grown-up should be able to take care of some of those challenges. And of course, some of the schools, there was some kind of, they were locking it from outside. Mm-hmm. And that almost made it impossible. It was like the inferno that took place in industrial area where people were locked in the factory with the hope that they would not sneak away. And in the process, they were consumed by fire. So it goes down to our social dynamics that our society, we need really to be more vigilant. Because you realize that if you are to do an audit of anything, today, the post facto kind of audit reveals a lot of deficiencies, including setting up schools and having schools that are operating, but they are not even within the law because they don't meet the minimum requirements. So at times you ask yourself, how come that those institutions, they already have a certificate that they are operating, only for you to do an audit and realize that the audit reveals a lot of deficiencies. It tells you there is a bit of negligence on the part of the society that we live in, on the part of those who are in charge of education, on the part of all of us as leaders, all of us as opinion shapers in this country, we don't seem to care what happens in your backyard. And this is a situation that is really worrying. Worrying in the sense that we need to be doing an audit. Look at even what the Minister for Education may be doing a commendable job by setting up committees to deal with the issue of education model of funding. But in the first place, how did we get there? Why do we allow the situation to deteriorate to the situation that we need a demonstration to prove to us that something has gone wrong? This is something that we need to improve in terms of how we deal with society.
Okay. And I think it's a star that talks about just how overwhelming the situation must be for the new minister, the new CS for education. There's so much he needs to handle at one go. The issue about university funding, the protests, teachers going on strike, lecturers going on strike, now school fires, and he is just a new CS, only about a month old in office. But definitely, he has his work cut out. What you?
Fred, the Ministry of Education, it's really facing, is it higher education, lower education now, you know, and it's a minister for, I think, both sections.
Yes.
And is facing his test, first test. At this moment, the hottest one was the university funding. And now that has been shelved a bit. So I don't know how the university students are going to be funded. And they're already reporting, they're reporting now. And so I mean, some of them will have to wait until the funding issue is sorted. And then you have the secondary schools where Kupet is on strike. And then, well, they have called off the strike, but this is go slow, literally. And then you have now the primary section. So for a person who just come in to handle all the levels, except the kindergarten only, which also comes in, right? Of course, there is the juniors, JSS, and so on. So, yeah, it's a baptism by fire. Hopefully, he will handle it. Hopefully, he will now just focus on that and really begin to get support from government to deal with the situation. He has handled, I think, the university one well by calling off or suspending the funding model and allowing for a committee to deal with the situation. That's how we solve our problems in Kenya. If you can't do it, form a committee, and the committee reports the same thing that you know most of the time. But we have to spend government money in a way by appointing committees. The students actually recommended, put this thing, shelf it, let's go back to the old model. And from there, we can now begin to develop a better one. So, yeah, and I do sympathize with the person because being in the ministry, if you have a false start, it can be very scary. You'll have inferiority complexes all the time. You'll be worried all the time about failing. And in this government, I'm sure they will tell you that if you don't handle it, I mean, the way you can is the way you go out. So it is actually the position of government that they should work together in a cabinet. A cabinet paper approved by all cabinet is collective responsibility. And so it should not be the problem of one person. Yes. It should not be left to the new minister. It should be a cabinet responsibility. Yes. And the chair of the cabinet definitely is the president. So it comes all the way around to the fact that now it should be a collective responsibility. Yes. Handling the situation with the children in this dome fire. It's a crisis by itself, a very big crisis in the country. Now, for the university model and for the Kupet, they should really sort out these problems once in a while. I think there's a problem with the Teacher Service Commission on that one that the government should also deal with. Yes. And if it's a funding problem, let them sort it out now, because the biggest chunk of our budget goes to that ministry. Mm-hmm. Actually, proportions I've never heard of, amounts I've never heard of before. That money goes to the ministry. And if the ministry plays with the policies and the money is wasted, the money goes to some other thing, then you will start having those problems. So I really hope that we have committed as a country a lot of our money to that sector. And now the person responsible, who is the minister, with his team, should be able to account for why do we give them such much money, and yet too many problems in the same place.
Yes.
If they should be able to deal with the situation, because I think the government has given them the money. So all right. So I know it's supposed to be responsibility of the cabinet. Let's hope that a cabinet that works together will sort it out.
Yes, definitely for CS Julius Migos Ogamba, it's a lot of work. We've been talking about the crisis in education and this administration's handling of all the education matters, a sector that, as Bwana Pogisio puts it, is the biggest spend in the budget, over 650 billion shillings every budget year. And yet we have so many problems in one. He has suggested that probably these are problems that are beyond just one person. That even at a cabinet minister's level, you need at least some help to handle so many things. For a new minister, new CS to come in, and within a month, you're faced with so many different problems coming your way. Definitely, it's too hard. It must be difficult for him. What other way, you've been a minister, for a sector as big as and as important as education, how else can they approach it? Because it would appear he is definitely overwhelmed.
Well, one good thing is that the engine of operations in any government institution are the public servants or the civil servants that we have. I thank God most of the, including the PS education, is somebody who has been in that ministry for quite some time. Therefore, he has some institutional memory. And apart from that, the government should also be acting as one. The challenge that we've had, and I saw the other day when the president was trying to make an attempt to answer some of the questions raised by students about the funding model. I would have expected him to allow the Minister for Education to provide the lead with the support of public servants who are serving in that particular ministry. But of course, the president likes doing what we call one-man show. Because he wants to solve all the problems, because he believes he knows everything. A danger that I've always wanted to advise him, that the moment you think you know everything, then you know nothing. Because at the end of the day, no human being can conceivably say that he knows everything under the sun. Even a minister, when you are there, is really not the minister who does everything. The minister provides the leadership. And the team around him is that the team that allows the ministry to function. Now, but fundamentally, Fred, yes, we are talking of billions of shillings going to the Ministry of Education for purposes of bursary. But I have so many gatekeepers that are dealing with this issue called bursary. At the county level, you will find there is the MCA, there is the MP, there is the governor. At the national level, there is, of course, the Ministry of Education itself, and many other channels of funding for both university and other institutions. I would have expected that this money should be in one kitty, and that kitty now funnels out the money to various institutions. More so when it comes to tertiary institutions such as the university and colleges. In the past, it used to be so easy. Once you enter a certain institution, they know by virtue of your number, by virtue of your presence, that a certain student is in this particular university, certain student is in this particular college, and the money will come, including what we are calling boom, which would assist you to dispense with some of the little expenses. But today we have created many gatekeepers, and in the process, this money disappears. If we are to do serious audit of the money that even goes to various constituencies, some of the students are non-existent, such that the deserving cases are left out, and the cronies of perhaps members of parliament or cronies of certain leaders benefit, and some of the money really does not get to any student at all. But the way they affect schools in this country, they also affect our non-existent students who benefit from this money at the expense of deserving cases. So it is a question of us reawakening our consciousness and accepting that we've failed. And from that particular awakening, we now spend more time targeting the needy students, targeting the students who deserve that kind of assistance, instead of leaving it with a lot of gatekeepers, shrouding it in a lot of mystery. And at the end of the day, nobody benefits. It's only the country loses a lot of money.
Okay.
That is my worry.
Yes, of course, matters education being the biggest discussion. Of course, the biggest one is what happens with the fire tragedy at Endarasha, Hillside Academy. The DNA testing of the remains of some of the victims will begin this morning, even as we continue with the first of 3 days of national mourning following the proclamation by President William Ruto on Friday last week. Yes, the Kenyan flag as well as the East African flag is currently flying at half-mast across the country and across all territories of the Republic of Kenya in honor of those departed from that tragedy. Meanwhile, as the Standard puts it, 46 children are still missing from the Thursday night inferno. And we will continue covering that. On a different angle of the education debate, state backs down on new university funding model. Yesterday, the Education CS Julius Migos Ogamba formed 2 committees to review implementation of the new funding model. And that, according to the Daily Nation, says the government has bowed to mounting pressure to review the model, and the student leaders have now called off their demonstrations, which were to kick off today. I want us to switch gears now and focus on something different. And this is what is on the Daily Nation on the front page. Ruto, China, and dark SGR secrets. We're talking about the president's trip to China last week, and this has revived debate and discussions around SGR. A lot has been said about the current SGR, the one from Mombasa to Naivasha. Now, President William Ruto has managed to secure funding for the extension of the same to the Malaba border. But today, the questions are, there's so much secrecy around the current SGR as it is. Why are we going on with more? And one wonders how we approach such deals. As the president pursues extension of SGR line, the current project continues to struggle with heavy costs, depreciating assets, and a web of secrecy over the manner in which it was procured, even as taxpayers are slapped with hefty interest payments every year. We'll be looking at that story after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe. Don't go to it.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indemuli. I'm still in studio with Samuel Pogisio and Kipruto Rapkirwa. We want now to focus on the president's trip to China, and the angle that the Daily Nation has taken is the secrecy with which the current SGR, as we know it, has been handled so far. Yet the president in China managed to secure funding for the extension of the same. Now, a lot of questions have been asked about SGR and the construction of SGR, who funded it, how much was the funding, and the contract. And I remember sometime in 2018, the then president, Uhuru Kenyatta, even made a promise on public TV that he would make the SGR contract public, but he never did. That kind of secrecy has raised a lot of questions about even the necessity or the feasibility of the SGR, now that you're talking about extending it. I'm saying this in relation to the fact that if you look across the region, if you compare Tanzania and Kenya, in as far as the China trip is concerned, both heads of states were there. Samia Suluhu Hassan was there, President William Ruto was there. If you look at the Tanzanian dailies, they are very positive about their president going to China and signing those deals. When you come to Kenya, there's a lot of skepticism. And everyone is saying, no, could be more debt, too many questions being asked, no answers. And one would think that we are very ungrateful as Kenyans. But we are informed by something, Bwana Pogisio, the fact that there's so much secrecy that goes with these mega infrastructure projects, that only nuggets of information are released, and sometimes we cannot even verify.
Well, the trust deficit is back. We deal with things like that in Kenya particularly. Tanzania is a different country, I think. The Tanzanians would probably have a better use of money. If you compare the Tanzanian project with our project of SGR and the Tanzanian one, you can see the difference, what they got and what we got. And so the issue is actually true. Every major project in Kenya, a mega project that has a lot of money, attracts a lot of interests, individual interests, and it looks like in Kenya, if you go to look for something, it's like hunting. When you go hunting for an animal, you get the animal. It looks like you first of all start slaughtering it in the bush there, and you only bring the carcass home, the remains home. But that's not really to say that we blame the people who go hunting, because the president has to go look for the money. The coverage here about dark secrets is very clear. Everybody has tried. There are people who even tried to produce the agreement. I saw the other day someone, I think, found something that looked like the agreement signed. Speculations about how the money then was spent. Somebody in Kenya wants to be a beneficiary every time there's a big project like this. There's a hidden hand. There's a way in which every project then gives way to a lot of corruption, and the money continues to dwindle until we cannot get exactly what we designed to get. So, but that said, I think the president would like his own legacy, okay, as president, to have Naivasha to Malaba, or is it Malaba, Busia? I think Malaba. Let's see how that comes. I mean, the Chinese are always willing. They are the main contractor usually, if the money is from China. So you find the main contractors from China. But let's hope this time that we get value for money. If you look at how the contract is signed, it's a public contract. If what we saw is true, it's a government contract. Why should we hide anything?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it should be clear that when you put conditions such as you make it difficult even for a citizen to question it, or even for a member of parliament to analyze it, then that's where we go wrong, because these are monies voted for in parliament, and parliament should be accessible. I mean, should access the contract and see what we agreed on for the funding. But no, I think secrecy is what's going to kill us in these things, because if you laid bare by any mistake the details of who really owns this thing, I think the Pandora's box.
Yes.
And I think we are afraid to do that. So we put conditions on the contract that make it impossible for anyone to know who has benefited from.
And that's a fear even now, that yes, you may get all these mega infrastructure deals. It sounds well and good, but the fact that there's a lot more that goes on in there, and the end loser, at the end, the loser is a Kenyan. They say that even the current SGR, and I'm just seeing a quote here by Jimmy Wanjigi, the businessman, is saying if 70% of volume of goods and passengers is to Nairobi and it has not been viable, this 30% west of Kenya and Uganda is dead on arrival. It puts to question the feasibility and the viability of such projects. Do we really need these projects? Do we really need, at a time when we're in so much debt distress, do we really need to still go for these things when even the previous project is still shrouded in secrecy?
Well, we may still need, but perhaps we may have to think of how can we get a fair deal as a nation. But the mistake that has hit us is that the moment you elect merchants as the leaders of the country, you don't expect them to do anything else. You know, a merchant, by definition, sells any merchandise that is available to him. And it is always good to do some comparisons. Ethiopia did some kind of railway almost at the same time. Morocco did, Tanzania did, but all the three were done at the lowest cost compared to our situation here in Kenya. Part of the cost in Kenya is that there were so many speculators who decided to buy land where they knew XGR is going to pass because they had that information from the ministry. Mm-hmm. So in the process, the compensation took a chunk of the money just to certain individuals to confer them special status in society. So that becomes the issue. The second issue is that this mystery that shrouds whether it is KPA deal, which the current regime had promised that upon taking over office, they will be able to announce the details of the KPA deal. Up to now, Kipchumba Murkomen left the place before announcing. I'm sure David Chirchir has no intention of announcing it at all, because it is like they know what happened, because the current president was a deputy president in the former regime, and therefore is part and parcel of the KPA deal and is part and parcel of the SGR deal. But on a positive side, I think it would be interesting to increase all the way to the border of Kenya. Perhaps some goods from eastern Uganda may get into SGR for purposes of transport. Remember, at some stage, President Museveni was almost opting for the southern route so that the goods would get from Tanga all the way to Bukoba, and it crosses to Uganda by the lake. That tells you there must have been something suspicious, just like what we are calling G2G, which they were saying government-to-government oil deal, which of course we preferred, some of us, to say gangster to gangster fuel deal, which became also another money siphoning exercise by this current regime. So these are some of the issues that what we call moral probity has failed. What we call issues of good governance have collapsed. So at the end of the day, Kenyans get what they deserve. They elected this regime, and up to now, possibly they have no intention of electing a better regime.
Wow.
Because if you stay in power, the way my colleague was minister, and then leader of majority in the Senate, and you still, you are not displaying any sense of opulence. They say you are not gifted in doing what others have done before.
Okay.
So when you stay in office for 3 days, they expect you to have 3 cars. And if you stay for 1 month, they expect you to have 1,000 acres in certain prime areas of this country, including Trans Nzoia.
And going back to the issue of a trust deficit, because we've been told so much that SGR was part of the problem, is part of the bigger debts that we're still paying as Kenyans. That's why we are in the situation we are in. We're told about Eurobond. So when we go, even as Kenyans, when we hear that our head of state is going to seek an extension of the SGR, we are not wrong in being that pessimistic and skeptical about such deals. Will we ever change? Will we ever get to a point where we are comfortable about the kind of deals our leaders get into on behalf of this nation? Because one administration comes, the best thing they can do is blame the previous administration. All these debts, it's the previous administration that brought us here. This could happen again.
I think what we have done to our government is that we made it transient. It is temporary, it is transient, it's moving, it is... It's here today, tomorrow is a different thing altogether. And for as long as we continue doing that, we're going to suffer this kind of thing, because I sign a deal and the next time I leave. I think when we used to allow our public servants or civil servants to grow through the ranks to the place where they actually take responsibility for things they do. Today, what has happened somewhere along the way is that you can come in and ignore a continuation of something that was there before, start a new one, shut that, start a new one, because you want your people to benefit, instead of saying the country to benefit. And I think that's so the transient nature of government has escalated the lack of trust. And who gets appointed to what, to do what. And so I do wish to say that one of the ways to restore trust is what we call clarity. Clarity is what is lacking. That's now the opposite of secrecy. You know, if you were to be clear and open in the way we communicate our intentions to people, if we were to declare that this is what the contract was, make it clear to people, we would not have these suspicions that we're talking about. So why can't somebody come and tell us, okay, this is exactly what happened? And if there was somebody who benefited from these things, who are these people? And because for as long as we don't declare who these people are, we will never know the criminals who are putting this country in debt all the time. But the transient nature of government is we come now, we benefit and we go. The next person comes and so on and so on. That's the difference in other countries, like in Tanzania, where the party, the Chama cha Mapinduzi party and the government of Tanzania, just like, you know, Chinese party, I mean the Communist Party of China and so on, very, very strong to the place where the internal management systems and accountability systems. We need to go back to a situation where we can say that this was done for the good of the country. But, you know, like my brother here said, we come into government to do business, and that's not very good.
Okay.
That's what really destroys our economy. Let me just close, I mean not close, but let me just add that when a situation like the one of the SGR comes to our hands, and now another group has gone, when you see people advertising a new project which is going to be involving borrowing money, then you know that they're not necessarily very good intentions for that project, because how many other projects have been left unfinished, uncompleted, that are priority? You know, we may say it's a priority to extend the railway, but how many other government projects, promises, have been left? Are they not useful for this country? And so let's take a stock of what needed to be a priority. So when we take a list to China, for example, are we doing what the China government would like to fund, or is it our priorities? And so who is benefiting in that sense? And I think we should really be thinking more about the major things that have been left unfinished, which are very important infrastructure. I'll take, for example, in our sports, why can't we do the stadia that we said we would do to be able to host international tournaments and sports? And you know, it can also be done by China, okay? And so we have those many things that we have said is a priority. If SGR has issues, let's move to something that we know can benefit the country. But well, the nature of our contracting, secrecy is still going to hurt this country, and the trust deficit will always be there.
And speaking of trust deficit, there's another conversation that curiously is missing out from all the front pages. But if you look at X, former Twitter, that's a big discussion, and it's the JKI takeover by the Adani Group. Everyone is talking about it on X, but I look at the dailies and I'm struggling to find it here. Yesterday we had the former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka openly oppose this, and every other Kenyan is opposing that takeover, at least on that platform. And one wonders, isn't this the same kind of conversation we're having, that the leadership of this country is getting into deals that many Kenyans are questioning, that have not been taken through public participation, but they will happen either way, whether we like it or not?
Well, I think that lack of public participation is a loophole that another regime or an upright regime might have to use to annul some of these contracts, because it's a constitutional requirement, and it's a requirement that must, of necessity, be adhered to, especially when you look at the details of this Adani report, is that if they were to take over JKIA, it's not just JKIA alone, it's all the airports in Kenya, and even those who anticipate to start new airports will almost be blocked from doing that.
For about 30 years?
Yeah, over 30 years. Number two, they are saying they are going to employ non-Kenyans, and we don't know what kind of proportion is that going to be. Three, and most important, in India, there is a lot of outcry about this Adani, and the current regime in India is likely to suffer a lot of setback, given the fact that people, anywhere they have gone, they have not been doing clean deals. So I do not know how Kenya, of all the nations, decided to invite this team to come and do the dirty work here in Kenya. It is unfortunate, but I have the hope that a better regime will come to town sooner than later, because some of these issues should be totally rejected and also should not be accepted.
But won't we be going round and round in circles when one administration comes, gets into such deals, then we're waiting for the next to come and annul everything?
The challenge is, I think as Kenyans we become docile, because I don't know, as you said, even the newspapers, I would have expected them to have it as headline, and for us to condemn it. And not just condemn it, and also make it not possible for them to take off. You realize even the workers of KKA were complaining about this particular issue. I do not know why the government has decided not to respond, and I don't know why even those who are in charge of KAA I have not said anything serious about it. And why does the president allow this kind of thing to take place, knowing that it is going to be retrogressive? We're supposed to be starting another airport in Konza for purposes of repairing of planes and also cargo. But if these fellows come to town, they might even stop that kind of enterprise taking place in this country, knowing that our planes today, if there is any challenge, they're either taken to South Africa or to Cairo. We do not have anywhere in the region where some of the services are supposed to be done on major repairs on planes. So we are losing an opportunity just because somebody has structured a deal that gives him a lot of money or has given him already a lot of money through bribes.
Bwana Pogisho, what's your take on this Adani takeover bit?
You know, first of all, how did this contract come about at this time? Because one time we were told that what we have at JKIA was sufficient for our needs, right? We still have a situation with Kenya Airways, our flagship company, struggling. We want to do a deal with Adani that was not processed properly, according to the workers at the airport. There was no consultation. There was fraud, literally, according to them, that they signed in something different and those signatures then were used. If that be true, then that's already a crime. But Kenyans must begin to think bigger. What is our priority right now? Serious speaking, a deal with Adani, or to strengthen our airport staff and our airport ourselves? The deal, the way it looks, by the way, is basically going to benefit Adani and those who are dealing with this thing. Because if you look at the way it is signed also, he can sack all these guys who are there. He can come and remove them. He has now permit, he has a permit to bring people from anywhere in the world to come and replace those ones. Maybe cheaper labor. And so what's going to happen to our people? What's going to happen to these young people that we are training and now here? He's not going to be obligated to hire them. So with that in mind, why are we not listening to the demonstrators at JKIA, the people who are saying, let's hold this thing back, let's go back to a drawing board, let's do a contract that we agree on, that we all agree on, and make sure that there are there are safety clauses for the security of our jobs. So yeah, I hear that. I was able to. I worked in that situation before when I was chairman of our airport sister organization, which. So we walked around the airport. We walked around there, and we understand the situation that even with the infrastructure we have today, we can still survive for a few more years. And it's not urgent for us to make mistakes around our airport. The Civil Aviation Authority being the regulator per se, we didn't run the airport, but it's a very serious partner in running the airport and running the affairs of flights and so on. So we do want to remind everybody that the workers who work for all those organizations belong to the union, and the union has said this is a mistake. So if teachers can actually forestall a decision of a government, why can these unionists, these workers at the airport be heard? What's the difference between them and the teachers' unions? Why can't they be heard? So if they don't like something, it means they know exactly what's happening in the country. Let's listen to them as well. So I leave it to Labour, I leave it to the government of the day, but really, what is the interest in this deal? Or why did people start exchanging gifts and monies before even, doing all these things? So I agree with the unionists. I agree with the workers that we must take this very seriously and we must prepare to do these things in a manner that are more transparent than what we are doing now. It's the same thing as the SGR extension, deals which we don't know what they involve, and so on. I think we better come to terms. I keep talking about the transient nature of our country. It's because today I can start a party 2 months to elections, and that party becomes the ruling party. It's transient. 5 years later, that party is no longer there. And so we have to improve our politics as well, so that we are not as transient as we have become.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it takes us back to a conversation we were having about a year ago on the privatization of major state resources, some institutions. And many people were also skeptical about that. It's the nature of how these things are done that people are questioning, should we really go that way? That you may seek to privatize some very serious, very big, very important, or concede some ownership of the same to foreign interests. But at what cost?
Yeah, you are right. You are right, Fred. You see, the issue is the question of management, the question of prudent management of our resources. I'm so confident that if the airport was being run very well and with good management and having some kind of expected profit, and you told Kenyans, yes, there is an enterprise here, you just need to raise some money. And once you raise that money, we shall be able to expand the capacity of the airport to make it more profitable. We don't need any money from Adani. Kenyans can mobilize that. You remember there was some public offer in the market. I don't know whether it was Safaricom or one of the networks in the past. And people oversubscribed because Kenyans have some little money. And collectively, we can raise a lot of money, especially when there is some trust that those who are managing these resources are not going to run it down and create some drainage of funds. But when there is some kind of underhand activity, it tells you the people who are doing this are not interested in the welfare of this country. They are interested in making their kickbacks for purposes of the next election and beyond.
Do you see a situation where, come the next administration, will be dealing with a lot of ills from what we're seeing now? That with the transient nature of government, the president has a leeway to do anything he may want without facing any threat of being called upon to explain his actions later on? Bwana Pugisio.
Well, every succeeding government, a successful government, tends, of course, to blame the last one for whatever ills. And it's true, we have accumulated ills from the past. And again, our thinking is, if I find that you made so much money for yourself, I start my own projects to make money for myself. And I keep saying, we think very short term, and we are a country that has been independent for many years. That we should begin to think we are no longer a small, country. We're no longer a young country. Kenya now, by any means, is almost what you call a senior citizen. If you went to talk 60 years, and we are no longer a country that needs to be back and forth. Using guesswork, can we do this or that? We have a master plan. We have a vision. If we don't have, we better have, so that we don't, we don't have this jumpy situation where I'm new and so I start something new. No, this should be a program that's national, a program that has been agreed upon by cabinet. The Vision 2030 was such a project. And successive presidents should just have said, yeah,
stick to that.
This is it. My term is 5 years. or 10 years, and I must then do a portion of that. But no, the transient thinking of the way of thinking is, I have 5 years, and that, by the way, that brings me to a point that that's exactly what happens at a county. Every governor knows there are 5 years, and that's all. And you want to be a billionaire in 5 years. And you, I mean, what's wrong with being who you are, even after 5 years as a governor? Be satisfied or make what you can make in your own businesses, but really looting from the public is a transient thinking. I might not come back, so let me finish what I can do now. And so you find these young people now just showing us projects that were started or promised, whatever it is, which don't exist, and monies have been spent. That is the thing that's going to kill this country at national level and at our county levels.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, debate about the ongoing mega infrastructure projects, especially after that trip by the president to China last week, will continue. Whether or not they'll make sense for Kenyans, or is it for personal enrichment of some few individuals? That's a debate going on. And of course, what's happening with the intended or planned takeover of the running of JKIA and all other airports in Kenya by the Adani Group, also making it to a trending topic on X this morning. And it's a discussion that will definitely continue. As we wrap up this our conversation today, we want to focus on some politics. And over the weekend, we've seen huge developments, especially in Mount Kenya region. The deputy president now moving around with a bigger group of members of parliament. His team appears to be growing by the day. Even members of parliament who are initially not part of his entourage now joining the same. And we've seen him declare yesterday, he was at a church in Kayole, and he declared that, or he felt the need to declare that his position as deputy president was not vacant and was not up for grabs by the newfound allies of the president, and that is ODM. My seat isn't vacant and I'm going nowhere, says GACHAGUA. That story is on page 9 of the Standard. Bona Kirwa, this is a lot. The deputy president has not found it necessary to defend his seat up until now. He has defended positions and his convictions on certain issues. But when it comes to his seat, it means there is a threat. And he has pointed the direction of ODM, that those newfound allies of the president could be targeting his seat. Do you believe that that could be the plan by ODM?
I don't know whether it's the plan by ODM or is it the curse around the seat of the deputy president or vice president for that matter, because that's the history that we have as a country. Of all the many vice presidents that we've had and the 2 deputy presidents, it's only 3 who sat pretty. That is the late Wamalwa, who passed on when they had very cordial relationship with his boss, the current Wiper leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Mzee Mudi Awori. They were comfortable because the boss never wanted to unrattle them in any way. But all the other vice presidents have had a share of problems, including the second president, where there was a group that used to harass him. Jaramogi himself was evicted out of office through his resignation shortly, perhaps after forming a republic in 1964. So all these issues have come to the conclusion that perhaps the position of a deputy president should either be seen as a temporary position or should be given some kind of insulation so that the 2 must work together. There is a lot of waste of resources when the 2 leaders are not working together. But back home, I think the writings are on the wall. I'm just looking keenly at the success of Raila. Should Raila succeed to clinch the position of AU Commission chair in 2025, that will be the beginning of the end for Rigathi Gachagua. Because if they are able to master the numbers, an impeachment will take place. Because it is clear the two of them are no longer together. They pretend to be together. Even when they were in Nyanza, they were behaving like their comrades. But when you see the footage of the report by the presidential team, all the time Gachagua was missing. And Gachagua's team also decided to edit the president out of their message. This therefore tells you the two are not together. All this is just a pretense.
Okay.
His position is in some kind of challenge. If they were to stick together up to the next election, it is out of convenience as survival, politically. Because there are two constituencies, Fred, that are very critical in the next election. One constituency is the Mount Kenya constituency. Whichever direction they would decide, that may be the future of Kenya. And also the GNC constituency. Those two, if they were to combine their forces in the same direction, that is where the president will come.
Okay.
And the current president is not sitting pretty because he knows, should that bloc move away, he may not get the requisite numbers to fill up for 47% of his last votes that he garnered in the last general election.
The issue here could be the position of deputy president, that if they go the same way you say,
yes.
If ODM would team up with Kenya Kwanza and impeach the deputy president right now, where would that seat go to? Would President William Ruto still be keen on trying to entice Mount Kenya region with that position, or would that position be up for grabs and possibly go to ODM? That's the question, because according to what the deputy president says, the threat is from the newfound allies of the president.
Well, I'm sure the president has always been interested in impeaching him. I've been told of two meetings that they held up to 4 o'clock. My sources I am not disclosing. But the truth of the matter is that if it was to go, it may go to Western Kenya. Because that is a constituency that needs to be galvanized. Because the ODM constituency is still very fragile. It can go either way. Unless the president was to go to ODM himself and become an ODM member, which he was in the past. That's the only way he can capture the ODM constituency. Otherwise, hoping that they can give the position of deputy president to the ODM and expect that constituencies to be properly galvanized, it cannot replace the 47% that he enjoyed in the last election. It will be a political goof because the mountain is still rumbling. Whichever way, whether Gachagua will remain with William Ruto in the next election, the mountain has shifted.
Okay, definitely. And it's there, I think, on the front page of the Standard, yes. As President Ruto makes more friends, Mount Kenya rumbles.
Yeah.
This position of the deputy president definitely is a bigger thorn in the flesh of the president right now. What exactly do you do with the Rigathi Gachagua, and who becomes your running mate going forward?
You have to track down what you would call the curse of this position. And it's been cascaded now beyond, to the level of the counties as well. A lot of deputy governors are going through the same thing. That it's a very delicate position that's sometimes sought after and then not really appreciated, because every aggressive deputy president is a threat to the presidency, because it looks like he wants to cut short my term. It looks like, he can be a one-term president because of this guy. So they're always being watched. And I think that President Moi, former President Moi, was probably the longest serving in that position, because he learned very early that this position really, you have to play very, very, very balanced. And he tried, and he lasted there. Today's report on Gachagua, and by the way, the politics in churches has come back. And he finds now that the only place where he can actually make this kind of pronouncements is in church. So he's going to be a guest of churches for a long time. And because the church says, okay, you must respect the guy who is a chief guest, give him a chance to speak, he'll speak there. And what he said yesterday is a very, very telling pronouncement. That means he also feels the threat of being removed. He already feels it. And he says, this position is not vacant. Why are you coming? Why are you scared? Why are you? But it shows that he himself is, actually. It's a very it's already shaken about it. And the one thing we need to interpret, I think, is whether he has a hold of the entire mountain, whether he still is going to yield some space for the other team led by Ichung'wa, who is aggressively, of course, showing that he wants to keep the mountain for William Ruto. And so it will be a tussle. The way it's going now, I don't know whether you can tell where the mountain has shifted to, but I know it has shifted. It is shifting. The number of leaders going with the deputy president now and speaking out, and the way the deputy president speaks, there are two things you can tell. That he has one foot there in cabinet, and to survive, he has to be there. But he's really trying to get himself to be the leader, the undisputed leader of the mountain. And whether he can manage that, it now will determine how he's going to be treated. Because right now, I think the other people, the other team, Ichung'wa's team, is treating the deputy president already like a man who is not in government. They speak about him like he's a stranger and so on. So let's see. And I think, I trust that the only way that the deputy president is going to survive is to make himself look strong, look like the undisputed leader, look part of the ground. And I think that's what he's trying to do. And if he does that well, it's something that might help him stay on.
He definitely does look stronger, Bwana Kirwa. And we saw this, that even with the current president, when he was deputy to Uhuru Kenyatta, the more he appeared cornered, the more he appeared to be like the underdog, the more support he got. Could that be what is happening to the deputy president right now? Is this growing support organic? And do you think that the current administration or the president himself can afford to ignore his deputy going towards 2027?
Well, I think regarding as a number of options. One of the options is to stick with the president and perhaps run together if he will be accepted by the president or his boss. The other option that he has is perhaps to support another outfit, and he will still be a kingmaker because that is an outfit that will win. Or even perhaps be in the ballot himself and get hold of the mountain to prepare for 2032. Those are the three options he has. As to whether this sympathy that we see today has been translated into votes is another story. Because the people of the mountain, the little I know about them, because I have a sizable population in my constituency, is that they make their decisions on the last minute. And at times you can underrate, like the way we thought Raila Odinga was going to gain a lot of good support in the mountain, only for the last minute for us to realize that the mountain had shifted to UDA. So my take today is that he has a lot of sympathy. Whether that sympathy is going to be translated into tangible votes is a story that we may need to reconsider much later. The second issue is that what would be the alternative to the mountain? Is it going to be Kalonzo Musyoka? Is it going to be that they will decide that they will go either way? The answer is no. The mountain, when they decide, they move in one direction. It is one of the communities that I know, they are not democratic like the Luhya nation. The Luhya nation can vote for everybody and anybody. But for the mountain, when they move in one direction. Whereas in our cards this time, the GNC and the mountain. So the deputy president should sit pretty, and I've just given him three options, and any of the options are good for him.
Okay.
And should he run, then we are going for round two. because there is no way.
He will definitely be a factor.
He's going to be a factor, and he will stop anybody from winning in round one. Then in round two, he may choose whoever he wants to support.
Yes. And going by that, it would mean that how he is treated going forward is going to be very important, because most of the speeches made at the Kayole Church yesterday were about the mistreatment of the deputy president and those people around him. The continued treatment or ill treatment towards Rigathi Gachagua will definitely cost the president at some point.
Well, Rigathi Gachagua is already aware that he's not enjoying the camaraderie with the president. The president has tried to make it look like everything is normal. But at the same time, the people that speak for him are not showing that kind of thing. So it's very clear that either they have instructions, the way, and I keep referring to Ishungwa, but because the way he speaks about the deputy president.
Even the Secretary General of the UDA party came out publicly to speak against the deputy president.
So that's the team that's led now by Ishungwa. And I'm saying, so what confidence is it giving to the deputy? The deputy therefore knows that he has to cut his own survival. And to cut his own survival now, he has to form his own team. And so the more that join him from the mountain, that's an indicator that the direction of the mountain. And you have to watch this space between what we're calling the mountain and what GEMA has become. These are all leads that go on to tell us that things might be moving slowly in a particular direction. And like Honorable Kiru was saying, who is going to be there on the ticket for them? Is that why Kalonzo Musyoka, for example, is resisting joining the government? Is that why Omalwa is resisting joining the government? Is there some other deal that definitely, I suppose that Rigathi is a very experienced operator, and it's not a pushover. And for those who are trying to do that, they should just begin to see already that he is able to defend himself and is able to communicate clearly to his people, whom he seems to enjoy the support of. So best wishes for him as he survives. To survive that position, it's not easy, but I think he's made of some good stuff. He's going to be able to stand.
And as we wrap up, looking at the front page of the Taifa Leo, we can see the image of former cabinet minister. I think you both worked with her, Charity Ngilu. And Sema Kalonzo arukwa tena. Now there's been this discussion about GEMA and how that alliance could work out in 2027. But Charity Ngilu throws a spanner in the works and says, no, we should be working with the government right now. That is an indication of an even bigger story, that someone is keen to ensure that that GEMA alliance doesn't materialize.
Well, it could be siblings rivalry, because what I've known in politics, when your brother does well or your sister does well, there is a certain measure of discontent from among those who are siblings. But also it is retrogressive in a way. Retrogressive in the sense that politics should actually be you play politics whether you are in the opposition or you are in the ruling coalition, and therefore it should not be attractive or should not be my appetite to want to be in government, and therefore to tell the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka to join government is assuming that the only way you can partake in the national resources is when you are a minister or you are in the government of the day. It ought to be, under the current constitution, that every part of this country must be treated the same way, whether they're in the opposition or in the government. Perhaps Charity may be realizing that Kalonzo eventually has eclipsed her, because at some stage he was the first presidential candidate from that region who created some national wave. Of course, there was our brother, the late minister, why am I forgetting his name, who ran on SDP And eventually Charity took over that party, and she was talking of a very formidable support that he got even from some parts of central Kenya, only for those votes to disappear on the eve of elections. But the truth is, Kalonzo is a formidable person, not only in Ukambani, but come the next election, if he's able to craft a team around him, he's going to be the alternative to Raila's position that he has enjoyed in the politics of this country. Okay. And I just want to say this, Fred, at times people underrate individuals who are seen not to be so ambitious. President Kibaki in 2001, when some opinion polls were taken among what they were calling KCA, Kenya Community Abroad, President Kibaki was not even ranking among the first 7. There was people like Kalonzo, people like Ngala, people like Saitoti, Raila, and so forth. Kibaki would never ranked. But on the eve of the elections of 2002, after Kibaki Tosha's statement that Raila ambushed us, Kibaki became a formidable candidate, and he got the highest number of votes in this country. So at times, some of those who have been writing off Kalonzo, calling him all manner of names, may be proven wrong in the next election.
Yeah, I think the future of the country is to keep people like Alonso out of government. So we're a bit surprised if Charity Ngilu is the one that is telling Kalonzo to join government for the benefit of positions, not for the principle of democracy. And yet we know her as one of the leaders in the second liberation of Kenya. And so, I mean, she should start thinking not positions, but principally. Even now, you can see ODM with members joining government, a good number of them saying, we're not there. Principally, positions are not the thing to look for. In any case, really, there should be no reason why people from the region where she comes from cannot get jobs in the government, because it's as of right. And that's where we're going wrong. So I hope that she will change her mind, support Kalonzo, stand with Kalonzo, support the idea that we can't all be in government. So some people must be in the opposition to hold the government to account. The only thing that, as I finished, is why are we not creating the position of the leader of official opposition in parliament and making it a credible, funded office, so that the persons that don't want to necessarily to join government can actually stay in the opposition and still be able to function as leaders of this country. So, and that was coming in when Raila was still on the ticket. Are they going slow now because Raila has moved out of that position? And I think that's...
Do you think that such a position would prop up Kalonzo beyond where he is right now?
Yes.
Is that what he needs?
And I think Kalonzo is really stepping onto that position very well. And so all he needs now is for that position to be made official and for him to take up the position of leader of the official opposition.
Yeah. Okay. Allow me, Fred, to add something to what Mheshimiwa said. Apart from the position of the leader of opposition, or whether you call it minority or opposition, whatever the constitution does require, he should also form a shadow cabinet minister. And I'm willing to serve in that capacity for free. I don't have to be paid, but because if I was to shadow any minister today, I'll be able to do my good research and authoritatively articulate an alternative position for this country. And I also wanted to celebrate Mheshimiwa Bogisho, because you see at times when people talk of second liberation, he has just reminded me, there are people who sacrificed, even those of us who are in Kanu, including him. He lost his parliamentary seat because he took a strong position at variance with the position held by the powers that be at that particular time. At the age of 29 or thereabout, he lost his parliamentary seat. And there was a period he was not in parliament. But when people talk about second liberation, they talk of those who are in the opposition. They don't realize even those of us who are in Kanu, we had to stand for Kanu to reform from within and to accept that opposition is an alternative.
Okay. Thank you so much for that ending. Kipruto Rapkirwa, Agriculture Minister in the Kibaki 1 administration. And Samuel Pogisio, ICT Minister, Kibaki 2 administration, also served as Majority Leader in the Senate. Our panelists this morning, asanteni sana for your very well-structured opinions on all the things we've discussed today and a lot more. These conversations will definitely continue. Today is just the beginning of this week, the first day of national mourning for the victims of the Endarasha Hillside Academy fire. Even as 46 children are still missing from that Thursday inferno. Thank you so much for your time at TV47. Coming up after the break, the second edition of Monday Blitz, your sports fix each and every Monday right here on Morning Cafe. Shutterboy and Fred Arocho will be in studio. They are actually in studio ready for this conversation. Harambee Stars Mbona Hawache.